Today we are here with Chief Paul Capo with Estes Valley Fire District to talk about training to prepare their firefighters and the firefighters in the surrounding communities for the eventualities of being a firefighter and everything that comes with it. So, good morning, Paul. Thanks for agreeing to do the podcast with me. And could you just give me a little bit of your background and how you got into training?
Absolutely. First, thanks for inviting me on this podcast, and I'm really excited to talk about what we're doing. And just thank you very much. Well, let's see a little about myself. I'm currently 46 years old, and I'm married for 19 years, and I have a 17-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter. Brief explanation of my personal life there. And then fire service-wise, I got in the fire service in 1996. And started with a small volunteer fire department, and then went to fire academy, EMT school, paramedic school, and got hired with a small 2-station department, lasted for a short time, and went to moderate-sized department, City of Clearwater. This is all in Florida. Did 21 years there, climbed the ranks, and retired online as a lieutenant. Then I got hired here in Estes as a training captain, and then promoted to ops and training chief, where I am now. So I've been very fortunate to climb through the ranks and take advantage of all the opportunities that the fire service has presented to itself. So I tried to get myself involved as much as I could. In regards to training, I have to say that just because of some mentors that I had, really got me attracted to learning the next steps, the next levels, not being content with just where I was after fire academy or with the training division had to offer. And with that said, when I took my first Instructor 1 class, my end JPR presentation that I did in the class, the 20-30 minutes, the instructor invited me. He was so excited about the topic I presented on firefighter rescue and survival. He asked me, can I do an 8 hours of that? And that honestly was the tipping point of my start of my training career. He booked a venue, and I spoke for 8 hours a few months later, and I was extremely overwhelmed on that. But since then, I just kept climbing and valued education, kept going to school, whether it be private sector with degrees, or of course climbing the ranks in the fire service. And in 2005, I started a training company, and had the opportunity to travel a whole bunch, which really aided me in training the rest of my career, because I not only seen what my small circle of fire department training looked like, but of what other departments did around the country, and other innovative firefighters, what they were doing, and it really opened my eyes. So I guess since 2005 is really when I really started being aggressive in training.
So you've probably seen a lot of change in the fire service since beginning in the late 90s. How does that inform what you're doing with training today? You said you're doing a lot of education, the latest trends, and trying to bring those to your folks.
Yes, definitely. Whether it be as small, I say small, but just one small piece of the pie, so to speak, of equipment change. Whether it be apparatus change, whether it's from the Paratech Halligan to the ProBar Halligan, like all the advances going on in our fire service since I came on, you have to adapt, and you have to, and technology increases, and training can't be 20 years ago, obviously.
So when you started and you said you got excited about training sort of pretty much right off the bat, what was it about training that really resonated with you and said, this is something that I feel very strongly about, that's important to the fire service?
I guess it started with one specific niche. As soon as I got into fire service, I was encouraged to read NIOSH reports and U.S. Fire Administration technical rescue reports, and learned how we died in this business. And I started reading those and started getting quickly, discouraged or aggravated, so to speak, in regards to kept reading about fatalities that kept reoccurring, or found fatalities like Mark Langart in Denver, or John Nance in Ohio, or Vinnie Fowler in New York City, and he died at the bottom of 7 steps, or John Nance, who fell through a hole in the floor and perished, and of course Mark Langbart's a local fatality in 1992. But I started reading these, and then getting really not much definitive answers after, in regards to how are we going to not let this happen again, or the entanglement that kept coming up. You know, firefighter dies of entanglement, and then a few years later, firefighter dies of entanglement, and I started saying, you know, so I still don't know how to not duplicate that fatality today. So why aren't we learning how to get out of entanglement, or issuing wire cutters to every firefighter, or learning these drills on an early level of fire service? So that's how it started with the firefighter rescue and firefighter survival, and started traveling and speaking to those specific departments, and going to these places, and finding out ways that we can overcome those. Now, granted, those 3 or 4 examples I just gave are pretty popular, but started getting deeper and deeper and deeper in regards to why people panic in regards to disorientation and etc. So that curiosity and not being willing to die the same way someone else did, if avoidable, really drove me. So it started with that niche, and then it went on to different other arenas in the fire service.
Well, I assume since you created a program around it and a company around it, that this is something that firefighters are wanting and really enjoy the class, and that's stuff that they want to learn. Or do you find that some are like, that wouldn't happen to me, and so you have to sort of overcome some of that?
In the beginning, it was definitely that this will never happen to me philosophy I kept hearing, but I think the fire service culture is getting way more open to learning on the firefighter survival, firefighter rescue. You know, NFPA, standard came out not too long ago in our fire service career, 1407, in regards to creating a standard that we need to learn these tactics. So I think we've come a long way since the beginning, when it was somewhat of a your head in the sand type of mentality. So no, it's definitely gaining traction, and I think we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but the training methodologies that supports the overall philosophy of how you train, it makes a big difference of how people receive it.
Well, let's jump into that. I mean, are you training, does this class for your sort of 1 to 2 year firefighter as well as your seasoned 20-year veteran, or is this sort of geared more towards someone with more experience?
That's a great question, and that is included in, I'll call it like the training philosophy, and I'll explain. So the way I go into any training and any topic is with the expectation of just making that one individual firefighter, or the company, and you can even say the department if I get trained to teach a department, but let's just say the firefighter, just better than they were yesterday, just better they were than before they came into your training, with a small expectation of just getting them better. So with that said, yes, it's for the entry-level firefighter. If you're just making them better than they were, not holding them to the same standard as the senior firefighter, who I want to get better as well. So how do we accomplish that? How do we not try to make them all Navy SEALs right from the beginning? So when I start laying out a training, no matter what skill it is, we talked about firefighter rescue, and it could be forcible entry or hose stretching or whatever the case is. Mainly hands-on right now in this conversation, but for hands-on training, I really want to instill as instructors confidence in 3 things: and confidence in the skill that we're going to teach them, confidence in the equipment that we're going to use, and then confidence in, the most important is themselves. So really briefly, like how do you do that? So I encourage all my instructors, and I do myself, is to demonstrate the skill first. So demonstrating the skill first shows confidence in the skill, because it obviously can be done. The door can be forced. I just forced it. Or bailing out of the window on a piece of rope as big as a pencil can be done. I just did it. And that, in short, demonstrates the confidence in the equipment that I'm giving you. I'm not setting you up for failure. The equipment works. I'm going to show you some tactics to make this work. I just showed you. And then how do you demonstrate or exude, confidence in themselves? And that's my favorite part, because that becomes a little more dynamic for each individual. But that's just mainly encouragement, finding their strengths and double downing on their strengths. A small firefighter is not going to lift a 28-foot ladder like a bigger firefighter, but how can we use their strengths and encourage them to do it? Because there is a standard. We do have to do certain things. So the equipment, the skill, and themselves, their own confidence, because the goal of training is to make the end user, the member, confident in their competence. So if they're just confident, then you're just arrogant, nothing. So, but if you're competent, then I want you to have confidence in your competency. So that's the goal. Granted, competency is extremely important in multiple reps, and it's a longer process than what I'm saying now. But when I say, hey, I need you guys to go to the roof, man, I want them just like leaning forward and flinching forward to go there because they're so confident. Like, yeah, this is what I trained for. Put me in on the ninth inning with 2 outs. Off the bat. So that happens through training with those 3 models. But to answer your question, is this for the beginning, minimum standard firefighter that's going through academy, or is this a senior member? So now we interject a concept called PACE methodology, and derived from the military, and I call it an altered PACE methodology because it's altered from the initial military function, but it stands for primary, alternative, contingency, and emergent. And with that, it's not plan A, B, C, and D. It's more complex than that, but you have a primary way of doing something, whether it's minimal gear, it's doing it in a soft setting, the classroom, and we're doing it soft, and then it escalates. And when you start escalating from a primary way to do something and to going to an alternative way, it could be a secondary way to accomplish that. It could. Or it could be the same way, but you add different stimuli, like now you're blacked out, or now we have less equipment. So now I'm gonna put you in the entanglement simulator, not with wire cutters, but without, and then we're gonna show you, the swim technique and doffing your pack and getting in another way, just in case you lost us. So as we increase that primary plan, the alternative plan, the contingency and emergent plan, they each get more and more precarious. We might have more stimuli, less equipment, but now we interject our skill sets, our people. So if our 20-year member comes to stretch hose and our brand new member comes to stretch hose, if we have them training on the same exact tactic, you're going to bore the senior member while training the junior, or you're going to overwhelm the junior member and gee whiz them with all this crazy stuff while you're challenging the senior member. But now that you have this plan and this PACE methodology in place, now you have the junior member stretch hose and just do a simple grab the nozzle and a coupling and advance to the door, 50 feet at the door type thing. And then the senior member, you go and now you give them the burst line scenario, or the stretch short scenario, or maybe the vertical stretch scenario. So now they're taking out their prusik and a carabiner and tying it off to a balcony, and so we leave at the end of the day all stretching line, but all being challenged in their level of not being overwhelmed, so to speak. So the answer is, it is for all skill sets in everything we teach. It's just a little more work on the front end of having some different variations and knowing when to use them.
How do you address sort of the, I think you mentioned it, sort of that heightened stress in an actual emergency situation? When you're doing that in training, there's obviously rules around things that we can't do in training because we can't make it too realistic, because you don't want to nobody should get hurt in training.
Absolutely.
But you also want to challenge them. How do you manage that?
Great. I love how you worded that too, because I didn't get on this job to get hurt. I didn't get on this job to die, and there's some things that are out of our control, but there are some things in our control, and I would like to say the training environment is very, very much in our control. However, things can go wrong, and that's in any place of employment. But I like how you said that we shouldn't get hurt in training, but yet we want to train realistic. So it's like a dichotomy, right? So how do we do that? So got me really excited on this question, because I dive really deep into this, and training realistically and how that works. So training on firefighter rescue and survival is a little different to train realistic in that arena than it is to force doors and stretcher lines. So I'll explain that really quickly. Andy Frederick said, when garbage men turn a corner and see garbage, they don't lose their mind. When we turn a corner and see fire, we shouldn't lose our mind. We're firefighters. We expect to go to fire every day. And every day on that fire that we expect to be on, we expect to do a rescue. So none of this surprises you. This is our job. We wear this name on our shirts. So when we turn a corner and see a fire, and we have to force a door, throw ladders, stretch lines, okay, that should be kind of our somewhat meat and potato thing. Now, are we going to get a little elevated heart rate? Yes. Are we going to get a little more amped up? Yes. And that's all good stuff. But when we train on firefighter rescue and survival, it is much, much different because physiologically our body changes. When we feel like death is imminent of ourselves or another brother or sister firefighter, physiologically we change different than when we do on a normal bread and butter fire. So without getting too deep into it, how do we train realistically on right now, the firefighter rescue and survival? So anticipating a switch when our sympathetic nervous system activates and we start advancing and climbing that, we could transition from our forebrain, which is our prefrontal cortex, our cognitive, rational mind that we use on our normal tactics on bread and butter. Now we feel death is imminent, we could transition from that cognitive processing mind and resort to our midbrain. So how do we simulate that without really putting somebody in this crazy scenario where we feel they're going to die? Because that's not something we want to do. We don't want to induce anxiety attacks. And people think that these some of these rapid intervention classes and these SCBA confidence courses need to be that, and I don't feel that that's the way. So we can do that by tricking the midbrain very quickly by eliminating. It's not intelligent at all. The midbrain, our amygdala, it's extremely dumb. But extremely powerful. But by eliminating senses, so sensory deprivation, which is blocking ourselves out, physical exhaustion before we do a skill activates the midbrain quicker, like going up some stairs a little bit or doing some skills and then going into the entanglement simulator. It's like all I want to do is get my gear off, and now I'm in this scenario and I have to say a mayday. The the autonomic nervous system, which is something that we can't control, goes to what we can control by the way of breathing. So teaching a skip breathing or some sort of breathing method that can lower you down. So there are tactics that we can teach our students that can simulate a stressful scenario but not actually be there. Here's another one: stimulating the olfactory nerve. The olfactory nerve, the sense of smell, is the only sense that doesn't sensory gate. So by smelling a burn barrel going, so there are some, I wouldn't even say innovative ways because it's out there, but once you see what other arenas are doing, SWAT teams and militaries and many fire departments are doing this stuff, you can incorporate that in to make it realistic. As for the bread and butter scenarios where physiologically we're not changing too much, yes, there are ways to escalate, and that's that PACE methodology. So stimuli increases, time-based training can increase. Once you are competent, now you can start doing that, and not too early, or else you're really gonna go backwards in regards to the skill set. But we can force the door real well. We can stretch a line real well. We're pretty decent at searching. Now we can do a competency and timed scenario. So it was like, how many of these things can you find in there in a somewhat realistic time? Not too long and find them all. Not too short period of time and find less. So a time base is a realistic scenario, and we don't have to come up with these times on our own. We know how much a lightweight truss building is the collapse, and we can use that as a time frame, and et cetera, et cetera. So we need to get water on the fire in so much period of time. We need to get people out of the building in so many period of time. So that types of realistic training can be extremely beneficial without having live fire all the time or some crazy sense of impending doom.
So you talked about reading a lot of NIOSH reports, and in almost all of them, communications becomes an issue on it. So how do you incorporate learning communications? One thing that I had heard once, and I think is true just based on my own experience, is as you get more stressed, your auditory system sort of shuts down and you don't hear. So they always talk about how you miss radio traffic. It's like, because I'm so stressed out, I actually can't hear the radio traffic. So do you integrate communications in your training so that people are practicing that piece of it?
Yes, we do, and we do that on an early scale because, like we said in the beginning of this podcast, that how we've seen technology advance. When I first came on the job, only the officer had a radio and no one else did it. Now, every seat has a radio, and we need to be proficient in how to use it. So our training academy here in Estes, we have radios for all the students, and so that starts at an early early stage in their training, and it's just how to don it, how to go on underneath the coat, over the coat, does the antenna go outside, the bunker jacket, and like, where's the mic, sit. So all of that stuff gets trained. And yes, sensory gating does occur, the heightened stress. Your cones and your rods and your eyes do change shape where you lose near vision, so you won't be able to see the radio channel possibly to change. So to change the channel from one TAC channel to another if we had to. So I would like to say technology has done, and our manufacturers have done a pretty decent job at addressing some of these. For instance, when we change a channel, it audibles now to say what TAC channel you're on. We have heads-up displays, so I don't have to read my gauge to tell you how much air I have. I can just look at I have an amber light, flashing and so forth. But to acknowledge the fact that somebody cannot hear the radio when they're getting, let's say, elevated in this scenario, to me, I found that tough to mimic in training, though we try. But how I kind of go around this is to come up with a checklist that the incident commander has, and what happens when that person does it? What do we do? We can't put our head in the sand and forget that they're not listening to us. So we have ways, we ask another unit that's inside with them, hey, you have contact with this unit, and go to them, and if not, then we might have to pull the trigger and activate the rapid intervention team. But radio communications integrated in training is from the beginning level, yes.
Awesome. So you've talked a lot about the changes in technology in your career and training. What about the change in the student, the firefighter? We hear a lot about the firefighter of today versus the firefighter of yesterday. Do you see a difference in how you have to train people with this new group coming up?
Yes, and I know where the question's heading, and there's classes out there now of talking about the new generation in regards to entitlement or immediate satisfaction in the ways that my children are getting raised now than what I did. So is there a difference? I see a difference, absolutely. Is there a difference in the firefighter, a trained firefighter now and back in the 50s? I would say no. And I say that because the productivity that I see of my young trained firefighters just gives me so much joy. They are still men and women that see a problem and want to solve it. They're still innovative. They're innovative in ways that I am not innovative, sometimes with technology or seeing things a little differently. But once I take my time to listen to them, they get to the answer better than I would have. So I would say, looking at the firefighter in general over the generations, we all come from the same mold. It's just a little different ways of getting there. So yes, I do see a difference, but I am not discouraged at the new generation of firefighters. There's more than potential.
Oh, that's great. And I know, so Estes Valley is a combination department, correct?
Correct.
And then you have your surrounding agencies are both career and volunteer, all career, all volunteer around you?
A mix, yes. We have some 100% volunteer, and then we do 100%, we have mutual aid, 100% paid.
And do you guys train together and so you can fight together and all of those in that way? And do you find there's a difference at all in training the different groups?
Yes. So yes, we all train together. Our academy up here is titled Regional Fire Academy, and we do have our 100% paid, our combination departments, and our 100% volunteer, all training together in all our classes.
Fantastic.
For firefighter 1, firefighter 2, instructor, company officer, and our advanced classes that we teach, which is coming up Friday. So yes, we're all training. And I'll tell you one strategy that I do use. It's so common that we put the departments that work together, the members that work in the same department, in the same group, right? That would make sense, and it does. So they're all kind of working together. But at times I split them up, and they'll come up for an 8-hour class, and I'll separate all the volunteer fire department. I put them with the paid, and I'll kind of mismatch it. And some great discussion afterwards in our kind of round table critique of the day, and of how much they like, they compare themselves, to the paid, and vice versa, and how much more respect they have from some non-paid, 100% paid. So that works well when I integrate them. So yes, we all work together and we're all on teams together. So I think we have a good model in regards to training all those different levels of skill sets up here.
What is your favorite class to teach?
Oh my.
Do you have one? It's like which is your favorite kid, but
Yeah, right. Exactly. I seem like I wind myself up over everything that I teach. Man, well, I would have to say I'd go back to how I started, and it's the firefighter rescue and firefighter survival. And again, those are two different classes. Only because it doesn't allow the deaths of these firefighters. 'Cause every skill has a name attached to it, and it doesn't let them die in vain. I honor them in our instructor manual that my instructors teach from in all disciplines, but in that one specifically, you got to talk about the case study. You got to talk about them. John Nance's wife name's Linda. You know, he lived on a ranch outside of Columbus, Ohio. 27 years out of a job. He was going to retire 6 months later. Like they're real people. I still am in contact with Vinnie Fowler's granddaughter. So they're real. So I like that class because it gives this emotional component to me when I teach it, because it just names attached, as opposed to extremely fun, unconventional forcible entry and padlock twists and slapping chains and taking hasp staples off. Like that's fun stuff, and breaking things is great, but I don't have that level of attachment as I do the rescue and survival.
oh, that's great. So in your mind, what training issue is sort of most pressing to you that you'd like to see solved? Is there something that's either not being taught, or it doesn't seem to be being embodied by the fire service?
Well, off the cuff, I cannot say that there's something that is not being taught. If anything, I think our public demands so much of us that we had to branch out so far where it's like, man, we're missing what's on our chest, which is firefighter. You know, we're missing, the fire, the EMS, and we're doing so much other things. And I don't say it's a fault to anyone. It's just that's how much we're trusted, right? That's how much firemen are desired and needed that we're doing now. Pick something, and it's so broad. So I don't think there's something we're really lacking. I think we're doing too much. To answer the question, I would say when I travel the country, and I often question sometimes, this isn't going to do good for my business, but like, why am I here teaching this skill that's somewhat mundane or kind of low level when they ask me to teach some low level stuff? Because most of our curriculum is all innovative, new, coming at it with different angles, innovative props. And then when I ask to teach some low, I question that. And so what I see, which discourages me a little bit, is the training divisions that are still teaching Firefighter One Academy. It's a JPR ran training bureau where every year we're doing these exact same things. We're stretching a pre-connect to the door, or we're forcing a door the same way, or we're throwing the ladder, just with 18 steps, as opposed to advancing and saying our fire department is not going to look the same as it did last year. And then we say that every year. So we keep evolving, keep getting more efficient, keep getting more productive with what we have. If there would be any need that I would see, is just if so much resources in regards to internet. Anything I can help, anyone listening to this, please call me, and I'll give you my plans and props and methodologies and manuals and anything, but is just to make our fire department want to come to training, because they're going to get challenged in a way that they're going to leave better than they were, like we said. And one other thing with the training divisions, or company officers for that matter, ask yourself this: are we training or are we testing? Because when we go out, sometimes we look at something, we'll go out, we'll figure it out, and then our members come in, and then we'll test them on something that we might just have got it figured out just a few minutes prior. And they come in, they wonder why they're discouraged, or they're not answering questions because they don't want to feel embarrassed amongst their peers, or they don't want to be set up for failure. So testing is appropriate, and we need to test, and there's some times where we're quiet and we have a clipboard and we test their capabilities. But for the most of the time, it's training, which means we're allowed to fail in this environment. We bleed in training, so we don't have to bleed in battle. So if we're going to advance our training and we're going to come up with some slick, more efficient ways to do things, then we have to expect our members maybe not to get it right at the first time, and not discourage them.
Well, the breadth of our scope of practice, as you said, it just continues to evolve. We, fire, EMS, tech rescue, cat in a tree, everything, call a firefighter, they'll do whatever job nobody else wants to do. So how does that impact your training calendar? I mean, you're trying to be proficient in so many different things. What do you do? The high risk, low probability? Do you do the low risk, high probability? How do you focus your training calendar?
Man, I struggle with this all the time, definitely every year when I make the next year's training calendar, and I don't have a right answer for you. I'll tell you how I'm doing it. It appears to be successful, but it's definitely not enough. So depending on your agency and how many firefighters you have, of course, is how you're going to curtail this. So it might take you 3 months to get through one skill just to train your whole fire department. Or it can take one Tuesday night for some fire departments to get through a skill, and then you're on to another one depending on the size. So please, what I'm saying now is not a canned answer to every department. But I try to fit in everything that we do. I mean, that's how I handle it, from low to high probability. Do I put a little more emphasis, maybe a little more on the high probability calls? Absolutely, but I cannot go with a low probability and high risk skill, and then it happened, and then we'll say, we haven't done that because we didn't think that that's going to come around. So I developed my training calendar, and I put all the topics in there, and I see, of course, whether dependent or inside classroom for the goal, and just normal instructor course delivery stuff, and I try to put as much in there. Yes, is it a lot? And could they benefit more by training just smaller skills more times? Absolutely. I haven't found the quite answer to that, but I'll be more than willing to share our training calendars with all the different colors on there, which each color is a different skill set. And then I push it out to my company officers. If there's anything lacking with any of their members, then they need to reinforce it. More than just a training division. So the training division, first off, here's something, should not be the only method that trains your fire department. It can't be, because of this answer that I can't even answer right now. It's got to be, one, it starts at the individual. There's got to be an individual desire to get better, which is reading fire engineering magazines and now going online or asking senior members. It's got to start there. This job is too important. We can die in this job, not to want to get better yourself. And then it's the company officer's responsibility to train your members. Find out where they're lacking individually. Come up with some innovative ways, not just target solutions training or not just table talk. It's getting out in the bays and doing some things. We intentionally have a seating area out in our bay in the middle of all the rigs in hopes that that's where firemen will gather, and then that conversation will lead to doors opening and rope coming out and knots getting tied, So as a company officer, come up with creative ways. And then, of course, the training division to tee up that, to give them topics, whether it be a quick drill every month that they can do on a company level, and a bigger plan in the training division to come. We can have some, because you have more support from admin and money and props. So of course the training division is involved in there, but it's a whole fire department effort.
That's great. So sort of, this has been an amazing conversation, and I so appreciate you taking the time to have this with me, but I kind of want to leave with one more big picture. All the money and resources at your disposal. What would you do for the fire service?
Oh, wow. Well,
I know that's a huge one.
Yeah, this could be a long answer and a lot of ramble, because there's a lot of things I would do. But if I would answer it probably one way, all the money, I would increase staffing. Now, just people aren't going to make it. You got to have trained, competent, able people. But I believe that the more people on the apparatus get into the call, provides a more productive scene, and it provides a safer scene. And so I would give it to staffing. That's where I would go.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate your time today. Again, this is training and ops chief, right? I get that, ops and training.
Yeah, we're a smaller outfit, so I have both.
Training and ops chief Paul Capo with the Estes Valley Fire District. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in a month with another episode.